Storytelling and statistics. Those are...
Ah! That's your next podcast.
Storytelling and statistics. Wait, I kind of love it. Okay, forget access denied. We're changing everything.
Access denied. Access denied. Access denied.
Hey y'all, it's your host Jessica Jordan, and I'm here on Access Denied, the podcast dedicated to helping you get over your fear of rejection, one episode at a time. Let's go! Hey y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Access Denied. I am so freaking excited because today I am joined by Autumn Breon. Autumn is an amazing performance artist, and y'all are truly in for a treat today because not only has she shared some incredibly vulnerable stories with us all, but also she has shared some of my most favorite nuggets of wisdom that have come out of Access Denied so far. We talk about everything from the essentials of care to the importance of building a community that's right for you. Y'all do not want to miss this episode. Let's dive in. Autumn, welcome to Access Denied. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Likewise. I'm so glad that we were introduced to each other just earlier this summer. We were in DC at the Creators for Repro conference, and it has been such a joy watching your story unfold online ever since. So it's an honor to have you here.
Oh, it's such an honor to be here. I really appreciate you having me. It was dope that we got to see each other briefly in Chicago, and now we get to connect with each other. This is fun.
It's so fun. Why don't you tell people about you? What's your story? What's your background? Who is Autumn Breon?
Yeah. Who is Autumn Breon? So I'm an artist. I'm a full-time artist. I'm based here in Los Angeles, and my work is mostly performance, sculpture, some collage, and installation work. My work is all inspired by a planet I've imagined called planet Esoterica. It's 300 light years from Inglewood, and it's where ancestors go when they leave planet Earth. So humans call it dying, but they're actually just transitioning to planet Esoterica. And through portals and wormholes, Esoterica will send messages to other planets like planet Earth. And the artwork that I make and my performances are meant to be these portals to Esoterica, where folks that are on Esoterica give humans like the reminders that we need to get through our time and make the most of our time on planet Earth.
I love it so freaking much. Esoterica is actually how I was introduced to you because I saw your collab with Feminist.
Yes. Yeah. That's true.
And I just think it's such a brilliant way to communicate information and to advocate and hold people's attention. And like, it's so beautiful. And the whole concept is incredible. And I would love to hear more about the inspiration for Esoterica.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it is a special container for the art that I make to live in. That collaboration that you mentioned with Feminist is so much fun. It's called Feminist News from Planet Esoterica, and it's basically like reimagining the news through the lens of this other planet that's like a matriarchy, and that's seeing everything that happens on planet Earth and reporting the news for humans. So it's a really great way for us to share accurate information, first and foremost, about abortion access, about reproductive health and reproductive freedom, especially as we're approaching the election. It's important now more than ever for folks to be prepared with accurate information so that they can make the most informed decisions, because there's like a lot of harm floating around now, and a lot of that shows up through misinformation.
100%. And talking about like access to abortion and reproductive health in general, I know, this podcast is called Access Denied, and it really does feel like the government is against women's bodies and against women and people with like uteruses just choosing to be able to do with their own body. It is a form of rejection. It is a form of being told no, and it is being told no, just straight up. And so I think it's so important that you worked with feminists and like produced this feminist news and Esoterica collab, because it's such an entertaining way of receiving factual information about reproductive health, which is so important, and it is on the ballot this November.
Exactly. Yeah. And I really believe that that's a way of caring for yourself and caring for the people around you, like making sure that people can make decisions with all of the info that they need. It's so dehumanizing to live a life without access to basic needs, and I think information is a basic need. And some of these problems are things that shouldn't be problems anymore. Like, not now. We're past that.
We're past it. It's 2024. Like, let's get it together.
Exactly. If I can order Uber Eats, right? If my groceries can be delivered to my home, hell yeah, I should be able to get abortion pills in the mail too. Like, all of this is simple, and so many of the solutions already exist. People just need to have access to it.
100%. And I mean, we've been doing even virtual telehealth sort of appointments, if we want to talk about healthcare as well, since COVID, really. And honestly, I think that's been happening since before COVID, but it just became more prominent during the pandemic.
Yeah. It's like none of this stuff is really new. It's just making sure that more people can use it.
I mean, gosh, I used Skype back when I was in high school, and I had no spring chicken, let's just say that. So
shout out to Skype.
Skype, the OG.
I love that.
I think one thing that you mentioned, though, is like that these are like essentials, right? And one thing with your new project right now, you are also promoting like essential care. And I would love for you to talk about the importance of self-care to you and what project you're working on right now.
Yeah. So a project that I'm working on that's really rooted in care is the Care Machine, which is a part of the Caravan, where different methods of delivering care are touring around the country. So the Care Machine was just in Chicago, and it's a hot pink vending machine, and I've programmed everything in it to be free of charge. So it has Julie emergency contraception, condoms, lip gloss, edge control, edge brushes. We have ring pops, pads, tampons, abortion pill information, all of these things that should be free everywhere in the real world, that should be easy to access, and all things that provide care.
I love that so much. You were in Chicago, as we said, and I tried to get out there. Unfortunately, traffic was a whole issue getting around Chicago last week. Oh my gosh, I literally got into a fight with a Secret Service agent outside of
Wait, what? Jessica, what? What happened?
They wouldn't let me into my building. It was like 1 a.m. after the Hotties for Harris party. And they're like, sorry, ma'am, can't go through. And I was like,
You're like, I live here.
Right, like I can see my door. It's 5 feet away. I'm gonna need you to let me through. And he's like, can't do unless you have proof of address. I'm like, yeah, let me just pull out my utility bill that I just keep on me.
Right. What? Oh my goodness.
It was wild. So I started yelling, as one does.
Wow. Whoa.
I was like, I'm a disabled woman. It's 1 a.m. What do you want me to do? He's like,
and I live here.
Right. I live here. I said, you can watch me open my door. If that, like, let me use my key. I'll show you. It was a
wow.
time.
What?
It was an experience.
What? Wow. I'm so sorry you had to deal with that.
No, I mean, somebody else came over because, as I said, I was raising my voice at one point. And they were like, yes, we will walk you to the door. And I said, oh, I didn't realize it was that simple. Thank you.
Wow. So then it turned into like concierge service. Okay. Whatever makes it work.
All right, fine. Whatever. I got in that night. It took about 10 minutes, but I did get in.
Oh man, yeah, I know how hectic the city was. I'm glad that we did get to see each other when we did get to see each other, though. But the caravan stop and this entire activation that was on the west side where the care machine was really, really special. It was called Heart and Craft on Lake, and it was just this wonderful, like, all day event with sky art, with Firebird, with Inspiration Kitchen. There were also performances where, like, Bandwidth had a whole, like, drum corps and, like, these majorettes that were dancing. The food was wonderful. People were able to, like, actually make art on site. It was just cool to see, like, an ecosystem of care and what that looks like from Chicago's perspective, from the people of Chicago, especially during a time like the DNC when so many eyes were on the city, you know?
That sounds so beautiful and so wonderful. And it just immediately makes me think, like, it's amazing what you can create and the community and energy you can create when people have access to care and have access to time and have access to like community and other people that are also like in a state of being cared for. Like it just creates such like a positive environment. So I'm so glad that was your experience here in Chicago.
I know. I loved being in Chicago. I can't wait to be back.
Well, you'll definitely have to let me know, and hopefully the city's not like as nuts when you come back. But that all is to say, like, the caravan I think is like so freaking brilliant because there are so many things that people cannot access, and I think it's also important to discuss like how access is limited to, even limited further, I guess is what I want to say, to certain communities, right? And I think that's a really key aspect of what your work stands for, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. These like divisions that are created by humans and really recent. So like race and like gender and socioeconomic status, like all of those influencing the care that you have access to. Again, it makes no sense and it doesn't benefit us. So a lot of my work, as you said, it's about reimagining other approaches that we can take to existing.
I envision Esoterica as a very inclusive environment, and I love that so much.
Yeah. And it's stuff that we can recreate while we're here on this planet right now.
100%. And that's the beauty of what you do. You show this, it's a fictionalized world, yes, but it's not, because it's something that is so easily accessible here today. Mm-hmm. We have the tools, we have the desire. The desire is there from I would argue the majority of people.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
I think so too. Like, we have these dividing lines, but like they're not divisions really. At the end of the day, we all kind of want the same things.
Yeah. People want to be healthy. People want to be able to live long lives where they can be their fully realized selves. Yeah. I would say that's what most humans want.
100%. I love it. I love everything that your work stands for. But you've not always been a performance artist, correct?
Right.
Like,
this is true.
Your background is very interesting, and I would love to hear about your specifically scientific background.
Yeah. So I went to college thinking that I would be an engineer. My degree's in engineering. It's in aeronautics and astronautics. I did some research that was like astrobiology related, and I also worked for Northrop Grumman. So that was like the career path that I thought that I was going to take for probably most of my life. And I still use everything that I learned and practiced in my creative practice as an artist. Engineering teaches you a way of thinking that you can apply to so many things. And clearly, like, the speculative fiction aspects of my work, like that's really influenced by science fiction Afro-surrealism and Afrofuturism. So it's still very much woven into my work. But yeah, I didn't always know that what I wanted to create was called art. So it was really freeing when I realized that I could like imagine these worlds, create objects, and like create these performances around what excited me, that was a type of art. It was really freeing to learn that and then be able to focus on my creative practice.
I love that. How did you come to like realize that? Like what's the story there?
Yeah, so it was actually when I was spending a lot of time in South Africa, and I started spending a lot of time in artist studios, with curators, with gallerists, and at art fairs. And I really started to learn the ecosystem of fine art. And I just like was really intentional about learning from these people that I was around as much as I could, just to understand like some of the mechanics of art making, but also like how to hang work, like how shows are curated. And then that led to me doing a deeper intensive on art history. But there were always like these kinds of like glimmers of art in what I studied and what I made prior to that. Like I was always taking like art history courses, like when I could, just out of interest, or like starting to collect art and like learn from other art collectors that were like way further along, like in their collecting journeys. It was just when I was spending so much time in South Africa, that was when I started to learn and see like what the day-to-day life of like an artist and different like arts and culture workers, what it could really look and feel like. And I started to think about that for myself.
I think that's really beautiful, and I love how you have really navigated bringing both science and art together. I feel like with the work that you do, something that like really spoke to me was when you spoke at or in DC all about your project, is it Don't Use Me, where you took data and like other people's like experiences and you shared that as part of this art project. And in a way, I did some research on you before we had this chat, and I know like you polled people about what to include in the caravan and like what they would want. And even with Esoterica and the feminist collaboration, that's all about spreading data and information. And I think that speaks to me very strongly as somebody, I work in marketing, like that's my background, and analytics, numbers, statistics, that's my jam. I love that stuff. And that's like what motivates me as an informed individual. And so I think that that is so powerful in your work because it's based in reality so much. It's not based in reality, but it is based in reality, and it just creates this beautiful convergence of both spheres, and I love it.
I appreciate that. Thank you for seeing me.
You're welcome. I told you I am a fan, if you will.
I love how you brought that up about like data and having that kind of information that can be analyzed and interpreted. So many times like we can be rooted in a reality that's based in information and data, and it can really be so like affirming for things that we already know instinctively. Like we're aware of pay inequity. Like even if you haven't like crunched the numbers, we've experienced pay inequity before. Most folks have. But when I saw the information that said this is approximately how much black women are paid on the dollar in the US, 63 cents. And then once you translate that into time, understanding that I have to work 8 months into the next year to earn what a white colleague, a white male colleague earned in 365 days. Like when you have that kind of information, you can really like interpolate and analyze and like even interpret the information into like these other mediums, including visually and including through storytelling. Like it can be, data can be such an important kind of like foundation to use for gathering more information and inviting people in to imagining what the solution might be.
100%. And I love that you brought in storytelling as well, because storytelling is like my bread and butter. That's what I like really
You're a
value.
storyteller.
I said marketing, but I also have a strong background in writing. And I think that being able to tell stories is so important, but data is a huge aspect of that as well. And being able to really see how this impacts people. And when it comes to the pay inequities as well, like being able to showcase the time of that, the time aspect. I mean, realistically, again, bringing up the theme of this general podcast here, but like it is a huge access denied moment, like being told like that you're not going to get paid the same as your white male colleagues. Are you joking? Yeah. No, for the same work. And I like, why? Mm-hmm. Why is that a thing? Don't like it.
I think that's that type of inquisition is so important. Like we gather the information, but if you were to ask most folks, like, why should someone be paid less for the same work? Sometimes we just need the question to face to understand, like how ludicrous the concept is. You know, like hear the question out loud, and that should help paint a picture of how silly this reality even is.
100%. And I think what you're doing is you're bringing awareness to it in a really like beautiful way, right? Like you're putting like shiny stars and being like, here is the information delivered to you on a silver platter so that you can enjoy it, but also like learn from it. And because my argument with people that maybe haven't considered, haven't empathized, haven't like had to understand these things before is, well, it's based in ignorance. At least that's what I tell myself. It's based in ignorance because they don't know. And until they are presented with the information, they're not going to know. Mm-hmm. And closing that divide is really important.
Yeah. A lot of most broken systems like need our participation in order for them to function. So when you can be equipped and empowered to decide what you're not going to consent to, that's the beginning of liberation.
100%. And I think it also speaks to why like independent artists such as yourself and independent creators like myself are so important, because it's not like traditional media is picking up these stories all the time. They're not reporting on it, right? Like
Yeah.
So
and somebody has to.
Somebody has to. Why not be you? Why not?
Right. Why not us?
But all of like clearly you have a very incredible background both in science and art. What has like leading up to that, like you went to Stanford University. That's an incredible place to study at, first of all. But did you have like any barriers to getting to these incredible accomplishments?
Absolutely. And you know, barriers that I still face today. It's something that my mom told me that I really hold on to, and it's so easy for me to visualize it now because I have visualized it for so many years. But it's basically that like you're gonna deal with tough stuff. That's inevitable. It's not like you're gonna get past one barrier and then there won't be any more. It'll keep happening. It just might take a different shape. It might look different, but you're still going to continue to have these barriers. The learning kicks in when you're able to like clock the barrier and figure out how you maneuver around it, and your recovery gets better and better. So it's not about eliminating the obstacles. It's just getting better about navigating them.
I love that. That is such an important perspective shift. And very much what I'm trying to communicate, I feel like, here on the podcast is like, you know what? Being told no is going to be a big part of our lives. Like, it just is. And dealing with how we respond to that, I think, comes down to self-respect, valuing ourselves, and ultimately knowing ourselves, too, and knowing what it is that we desire out of this life and what we want, who we are, all of that.
Yeah, that's the part that you can control is how you react and how you receive it, for sure, for sure. When I was in middle school, a really big no, a big barrier that I remember. We were supposed to say what we wanted to be when we grow up. And I remember I said I wanted to be an astrophysicist. I've been interested in aeroastro at different levels and in some form since I was probably like 6 or 7 when I read A Wrinkle in Time. I loved that book so much, and it just like changed me, and that was when I knew like, yeah, this is what I want to do when I grow up, right? I had like the posters of like the solar system and like the astronaut class like for that year. Like I would collect that kind of stuff. It was all over my walls. And I remember an instructor said, "Oh, well, that's not realistic. Like what's something more realistic?" And I was a kid, so I think that like my first reaction was like I internalized it. I felt like I did something wrong, or there was something wrong with me. And I remember I like when I came home, like to my mom and my aunts, I obviously told them what happened, but I remember my mom saying the same thing, very similar to what I was talking about with like how your recovery time just gets better. But I remember what was so important that she told me was that I didn't do anything wrong. That basically I couldn't be responsible and I couldn't like carry the weight of someone else's ignorance and their low expectations, and that wasn't something that I had to change myself for. And I mean, you know, he may have been right. Like maybe that wasn't realistic because yeah, I did go on to Stanford. I did go on to work on small satellites and do what I wanted to do, but I also ended up being an artist and an entrepreneur. So there were other multitudes that I ended up containing and being able to explore. But that was just, and especially at that time, because like to hear something like that when you're a young person, there's already so much that's like changing about you, and you're like developing this kind of like perspective and personality. That's not the time when an adult should try to limit it and limit a young person, you know?
Oh, absolutely not. I'm mortified that somebody in middle school was telling you not to like reach for the stars. Are you joking? Like that's the time that you should be bolstering children to go out and like push themselves, because high school, college, like those are very foundational years for achieving what you want out of life and work ethic and all of that. And I'm so sorry that you were told that. Clearly, you still went on to achieve great things despite that kind of knockback, if you will. But at the same time, like, I'm really disappointed that was something that you experienced, especially at such a young age. But how did you utilize that experience though as you navigated forward? I know you said that your mom was like, it's not your, like, you didn't do anything wrong, but obviously you did go to Stanford, you did study astrophysics. So like, how did you, and obviously you remember this encounter. So like, it feels like it's something that you've held on to, not necessarily that you like reflect on or that hold you back in any way, but how did you utilize that? And you're like, yeah, no, I'm going to keep pushing anyway.
Yeah. I think I used it as a reference for understanding people that have very limited views. So the women that I grew up with, my aunt is a mathematician. My mom also studied engineering. I was used to seeing women in these roles. I was used to seeing Black women in these roles. So it wasn't like I had to go through some kind of like mental gymnastics in order to like picture myself like, doing something like this, like exploring a career in STEM or whatever. Like that seemed typical for me. And I think that experience just helped me understand that other people's views are often sometimes just a lot more limited based on their experience and what they've seen. And it just kind of helped empower me when I would face people with limited views, systems that had limited views, to not take it personally, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt, but it's about, again, like how quick can you go from feeling hurt to understanding that it's not something that has anything to do with you or is within your control. What I can control is like showing up as my best self and doing what I know I'm capable of. So I'm really grateful for that experience, actually, because it again, having like that kind of reference and just having a moment to know like you're not crazy, and something that you can look back on when sometimes it's easy to get gaslit or like to gaslight yourself. I think it helped me with that, and also to always prioritize like having like a tribe, a community, like I was able to go to my mom and my aunts, right? When I faced stuff like that later on in life, like when there wouldn't always be like a lot of women sometimes like in my cohorts, with some of the projects that I worked on and things like that. Always looking for people that see you as your fully realized self, and folks that you see in the same way, for when you need that kind of like outside reminder from folks that care for you. I think that it's helped like to empower me to seek those types of communities, because that's so important for us, especially when we're existing within these broken systems. Like when we're experiencing like pay inequity, for example, like in the workplace, it's important to have like a tribe like that. It may not be like, the people that you work with directly, but folks that you can go to, like when you clock out, for example, to be like, hey, it's time for me to renegotiate my salary. Can we practice together? Or what tips have worked for you? Like, it's so important for us to have tribes like that.
100%. I love so much of what you just said. Two things specifically are reaching out to me from everything that you just shared. And number one is the importance of representation, right? And the importance of seeing yourself in these spaces, and the importance of having women, I think in particular, but like also like women from your community. So for you, like Black women that you can like lean on and see and have like, wow, okay, they're in STEM, I can be in STEM. 100%, no questions asked, period, the end. Love it. And I think the other thing that I love that you've just said is how you almost have to get used to being given pushback, right? And being gaslit into thinking that you can't achieve things. And while it sucks that happened when you were in middle school, it also serves as probably a really great foundation for how to navigate that pushback from a young age, because I'm sure women in STEM, Black women in STEM, like that is, it had to come with a lot of these challenges, even if they weren't necessarily like in your face, like somebody saying that's unrealistic. No, sometimes it can just be in microaggressions too.
Absolutely. And that totally exists within art as well. Like, but with art, it's like, we don't have like an HR or like a union. So a lot of this stuff is just like unregulated and happening like within systems, like day to day, interpersonally, like unfortunately the same rules or lack thereof apply.
I love that you said that too, about like, there's nothing regulating this in the creative space at all. It's just a free-for-all. You're kind of set to like figure out the rules for yourself. And that's a really scary place to be.
It can be.
It can be. It can be really empowering in a lot of ways. And it allows for a lot of freedom, I would say, in terms of what your day-to-day looks like and what you can achieve in the long run, because it's like there is no ceiling. There is nothing holding you down in a sense, but there are so many little things holding you back every single day too, and you have to navigate that on your own essentially.
Well, yeah, one could choose to. One could choose to. That doesn't work for me. I really thrive in collaborative spaces, and my community has been so helpful, and my team for just like how I navigate the industry, like how I make decisions. Again, like the folks that you can go to when you want advice, like whether it's a mentor or a peer, that's been like so helpful, and it's a part of how I'm very intentional about working. Like it's so important for me to have the folks that I care about and that care about me on speed dial to ask, like, hey, what would you do in this situation? Or I know that you've been like in a show like this before. Like, what should I be thinking about? I think it's so great to have people like that, and I could never do it alone. I don't want to.
What advice would you give for people that are like looking to build out a supportive community like that? How did you find yours?
I think the important part is being yourself, obviously, like unapologetically, like, and it's the same thing, like the community that you seek when you move to a new city or when you start a new gig or something. Like I think there are all of these types of like scenarios where we seek community, and you have to be your full self so that the people that are also looking for you, so that they can find you, I think you start with that. You start with yourself, and then just be present. Like be fully present in the places where you are seeking community.
I always, in all of my content, feel like I go back to the self a lot. I feel like that's something that just like speaks to me, because it's been so imperative to my own mental health journey, my own like getting to where I am today in this world. And so I love that you said the importance of self within finding community, because it does come back to that, doesn't it? It is not hard to find people in the world. It's hard to find people who elevate you to the person you want to be. That is the challenge. And in order to do that, to your point, you have to know yourself. You have to really get comfortable with yourself. You have to spend time getting acquainted with who you are at your core, what you value, what you like, what you don't like. Gosh, I think what you don't like is almost more important than what you like sometimes.
I think so too. Yeah.
It's important. It's yes, I love that you said that. That is so good. So good.
Oh, I'm glad. I think we get to know ourselves like that's not a one-off kind of experience, getting to know yourself. Like it takes, it is a relationship. It's a relationship with yourself, but it's a lot like a relationship with another person or with people. Like it's continuing to choose that person, continuing to choose yourself, and continuing to like inquire and explore all of the different parts of yourself. That's ongoing, and it should be.
And I think giving yourself the grace within that ongoing process to change and to not be the same person you were 2 years ago, 6 months ago, 2 weeks ago. Things change, and that's okay. That is okay.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it's encouraged.
I think it should be too. Like, I wouldn't want to be the same person 10 years from now that I am today on this Tuesday, but we should grow.
We should grow. I know for a fact, I feel like I've grown so much in the last definitely the last 5 years, but even in the last like 6 months, so much has happened. And I'm grateful for every fallback, if you will, every failed relationship, every barrier, because every barrier has gotten me one step closer to where I want to be, who I am, and where I fit into the world around me.
How do you continue to choose yourself? What does that look like for you?
Oh, I'm not used to the questions. That's a great question though. You know, I have leaned into mental health a lot over the last several years because I really doubted my value in this world as a disabled woman. I really didn't think very highly of myself for the majority of my late teens and early 20s. I really questioned if I should even take up space. And it was in a therapist's office where I heard for the first time, it's okay that you take up space from somebody other than my parents, right? Like, it was like revolutionary. I was like, oh, what? And so now I think that's how I really prioritize getting to know myself, is in therapy sessions through journaling a lot. I just like back to the writing thing. I will just like free write all the time, like nightly if I can, and just like dump out all of my inner thoughts. And it doesn't make sense. It's a lot of misspellings and improper grammar, but it's there and it helps me sort through my thoughts. So
that's a really wonderful ritual.
Thank you.
Because it's like you aren't keeping like the thoughts, the ideas like in one place. Like there's also like the physical, the somatic action of releasing it onto something that you can choose to read if you want to.
100%. And it's helped me to go back and read through some of the gibberish as I've been navigating friendships and relationships, and like, okay, is this actually serving me? Is this something that's bolstering me? And that's some tea for sure, but it's true. Like, it does help a lot. And even if I don't necessarily go back through it, like, your body memorizes things, or your brain memorizes things when you write it down. Like, that's a fact. And so it helps just to put it all down on something, and suddenly it's like, okay, no, now I can process this a bit as well.
So it sounds like that's data too. Like you're using that for like your decision making and like how you move through your life. It's something like you go back and reference.
Yes, 100%. Storytelling and statistics. Those are.
That's your next podcast.
Storytelling and statistics. Wait, I kind of love it. Okay, forget access denied. We're changing everything. Wait, this is wonderful. Oh my gosh. Autumn, you've been a delight. I do have a few more like questions for you.
Yeah.
But I also know we've been on for a while and I want to be mindful of your time.
It didn't even feel like it.
I know. I just looked at the time.
It feels like a conversation.
Oh God, we've been talking. Okay, no. I love this. I'm so excited. What is, I know in the creative space, we can't always talk about what's next for us, but what is next for you? Because you've done a lot of different things. So what are you feeling called towards right now?
Ooh. I'm excited to continue exploring care. And like the different ways that it shows up and has shown up in different parts of history. I love being able to do like research in like archives and things like that, like folks' personal archives, and also like within institutions. So I'm really excited to just like continue exploring care and what it has looked like and can look like.
I love that. Care is very foundational, I think, for a lot of people, and it is an essential, right?
Exactly.
Care is an essential.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay, well, before we wrap up, I have some hot button questions that I like to ask all of the people that I interview.
Yeah.
So, number one, when you're feeling down, when you're feeling unmotivated, when maybe you've been told no or going through one of those barrier moments, what is a song that can always get you back on your feet?
Definitely Chic, like anything by Chic. I'm coming out, Diana Ross. Speaking of chic, I also love My House. I love that Diana Ross song too. It's my house and I live here. Yeah, it just like I think something about like the songs that I mentioned, like there's a tempo where it's kind of hard to like sit still, and that might be a part of why I have that kind of reaction when I hear that music. Like it's good medicine for me because it gets me moving a little bit. You know, even if it's just like bobbing your head, I think that kind of motion is good medicine for me.
Wait, okay, obsessed. Obsessed. That's so great. Music to me is like one of the things that I think brings people together, and it's so based in emotion and like I don't want to say feeling, but like stories, right? It's so based in personal experience that I'm like, yes, no, I always have to ask this music question every time because it's important. As you like are so focused on care, my next question is, what is in your personal, what I'm calling rejection rescue kit?
Ooh. Okay. So like physical objects that I would have in a kit?
Experiences, like something that you do to treat yourself. What either one. It can be an item, it can be just something that you do.
Oh, okay. I love a bath.
Oh.
I love soaking in a bath. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's really good for me. I love reading in a part of my house that's close to a lot of the windows or outside in the garden time for sure. Having good food with my friends, that's definitely in the rescue kit. So just like a good brunch, or like a nice supper with folks. Those are good for me.
I love that. I'm a big believer in leaning on community. I'm a big believer in baths, and I'm a big believer in food. So
yes.
I love all of it.
Yes. Next time you're in LA, we definitely have to do the food part. Like, we got to make some time for that.
Okay, well, I'm definitely hoping to come to LA sometime in the next year. So
okay,
yes.
Let me know.
I will. 2 more questions, important
Yeah.
questions. Number 1, what's the last thing you did scared?
Ooh. Okay. So I'm getting ready for a performance. It's gonna be at the end of September at LACMA. It's for Freedoms Congress. I'm really excited about it, and I recently injured my leg, so I've been really intentional just about like, and that's a part of like why the baths are a part of my care too, because I have to like soak this and everything. But I practiced some of the movement where in the past, as I've been recovering, I've been like really cautious on one of my legs just because like I don't want to like aggravate it again. But I practiced this new movement and I felt okay, but I was a little bit scared when I was rehearsing it, and usually I don't feel scared like that with choreography. But I definitely felt a little bit nervous, but on the other side, I was okay.
That's amazing. First of all, I'm glad that you felt okay, because like
me too.
Injuries are not fun, and like pain is not fun, so I'm really glad. But I'm also glad that you like pushed yourself in a way with like safely. You safely pushed yourself.
Yeah. And that goes back to like having like safe environments for where we experiment, for that being a part of how we experiment. Like you should be able to do something that scares you, but when you have like a safety net that like you can fall on, or you know, hey, worst case scenario, this is what I'm gonna do. I know there are other options. Like that's when you can do things that scare you and actually learn from it.
Oh my God, I want to package that up in a little box because that was such a good nugget of information. Having safety nets, having community and support is so vital to being able to take these risks, I think. And that comes back again to knowing yourself and welcoming that in. Yes. Oh my God. So much goodness. So much goodness. Final question for you.
These are great questions.
Thank you. What is some advice that you would give to somebody who may be letting themselves hold themselves back because of their fear of rejection?
Oh, I was actually just talking about this recently with a friend. My granddaddy would always share this advice from something that he learned when he was a kid. But if rejection is like what you know that you're afraid of, if that's what's inhibiting you from doing something that you can do, naming the fear, like describe, even if it's like writing, like free writing, like you were describing, if you were just to write down like, this is what I'm afraid of, or say it out loud. This is the absolute worst that I think could happen. This is what rejection would look like, right? Name it, but then also name like, okay, with the things that I'm saying could happen to me that I'm afraid of, what would I do? Like, would I have a way of recovering? So if it's like, hey, if I take this job, I know that it would cost me this much to move. Okay, and that might be scary. But what if you have a way to pay for it? Or what if seeing the number helps you, come up with a budget to explore that option, then you can eliminate that possibility. I think just like putting some time into like, it's kind of like honoring the fear, I guess, like saying like, okay, let me actually look at square in the eyes what I'm afraid of, and do I have ways that I can maneuver past whatever this fear is? And if you do, logically, you should probably see if one of your options might work.
I love that. Naming what scares us can be so simple, but also so freeing, because speaking it out loud or writing it down, however you do it, even just thinking it in your brain and allowing space for you to have feelings about that.
Yeah.
It takes the power away. It makes it seem so like, oh, okay. And I love the idea of like showcasing the options for positive sides too, right? And I think that's something that people are like, well, sometimes really hesitant about. And I'm like, no, own the fact that it could all be okay.
It could.
It could all be okay. It doesn't always have to be bad.
And that's what you got to ask yourself too. Like, okay, what if this happens? What if that happens? Okay, but what if it works out?
Stranger things have happened.
Truly. Yeah. But yeah, you got to look that kind of fear square in the eye. And then I also believe once you do that, don't look back. Like, don't look in your rear view mirror to keep like checking on that fear. Once you've named it and you decide whatever kind of option you're going to take, move forward with that. Be fully present in how you decide to move forward. You can't look back.
I love that. I think that's so important, is being able to focus in and be like, all right, I've made this choice. I'm owning this choice. We're going to do it.
Commit.
Because yes, I had a choir teacher one time that like, he is always in my brain for so many reasons.
Oh, wow.
Both in good and bad ways. But he said something along the lines of like, why would you ever do anything that was like half-assed? Like, why would you ever just like be mediocre? He's like, why would you choose to be mediocre when you could be excellent?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah, you have a choice.
You do. Mediocrity is a choice, because if you're putting your best foot forward, if you're putting your full self behind what you're doing and what you're trying to do, then you can't fail, really.
Yeah.
You might get told no, there may be barriers, but at the end of the day, you're doing your best, and that is the win. That's right. The win.
A no is not failure. That's true. That's very true.
Autumn, this has been an actual delight. I can't believe, like, I'm looking at the time again. I can't believe how quickly the time is speaking to you.
I know. This was full of so much joy. I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Well, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that it is a reciprocated feeling, because I've had so much fun with you. Tell everybody listening where they can find your work, what you're doing, what's happening right now. Where can people enjoy more of Autumn?
Yeah. You can follow me everywhere with my name, Autumn Breon. That's how you can find me on Instagram. That's my website. The upcoming Four Freedoms Congress is going to be so special at LACMA, September 27th and 28th in Los Angeles. And yeah, come check out a day filled with all of these beautiful intersections of art and civic engagement, and keep up with the care machine and the caravan as we travel around leading up to the election. Make sure that you're registered to vote at vote.org. It takes about 30 seconds. You can check your voter registration status. And if you are registered, send it to somebody else so they can make sure too. And if you're not, you can get registered at the same website. You go to vote.org/Autumn Breon, and you can check that out in 30 seconds.
Oh, love everything about that. All of Autumn's social media and website will be linked in the show notes, friends. So definitely go give her a follow. Go check her out. If the caravan is in your city, go say hi, because she's a delight and you're going to want to do that. And thank you, Autumn, once again for being here. You're the best.
Thank you, Jessica. It was so good to see you. I'm sending you a virtual hug.
Virtual hug. Ah! Oh, thank you. Have a good one, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Access Denied. New episodes launch every Tuesday, so I hope that you will subscribe, download, whatever you do to make sure you're here every single week. We have so many incredible guests coming on, and I want to say a huge shout out to JP Warner Sound for dropping this sick beat that you're listening to right now. Thanks to everybody who made Access Denied possible, and I will see you next time. Bye!